Working as an Aussie Bushranger, Part 3, The Massacre. Written by Ranger 10123 from r/no sleep. So, I'm pissed. For days I put up with having nothing to read, literally days of being bored out of my mind, shadowed by Lizzie and humiliated by Sydney's constant exploits. But I put up with it, not just out of the goodness of my heart, but because I knew that Davo was going to be coming down on Thursday with the monthly supply drop, and I'd get some new reading material. Plot twist, it didn't fucking happen. See, the park is a good few hours out of town, and before Lizzie, Gordon was the only one with a driving license and no psychopathic tendencies while behind the wheel. Looking at Sydney with that one. Seeing as he doesn't have the time to take the drive every couple of weeks, that fell to Dave. Dave, or as we've always called him, Davo, was the only local barmy enough to drive up here every month with some supplies. You know, food and whatnot. He's middle-aged, average height, white with a beer gut. A bit bogan, honestly, but he kept the racism to a minimum and was always nice enough to bring a few spare books for me whenever he came up. And now, of course, he's gone and got himself killed. It was the bunny yip that got him, based on the specific region that was missing from his body. The penis. The bunny yip ate his penis. It's weird because it's not a part of the actual legend. Bunny yips haunt billabongs, sure, and eat unsuspecting humans who draw too near, but there's nothing about them specifically aiming for male genitals. That's just our guy. Then again, who am I king-shaming? My dad has tentacles. Still though, we don't know why he went down to the billabong in the first place. It was a good hour's trek from where he left his car, abandoned in the middle of the road. The lyrebirds would have led him far from that, and definitely wouldn't have let the bunny yips steal their meal. And we can't imagine him going there by his own accord. His keys were still in the ignition, and he's a local. Even if he doesn't know it all, he knows enough to stay the hell out of their bushland. Anyway, the government authorities in charge of the cover-up, it's always more thorough when it's local, confiscated the supplies he was going to drop as evidence, including, of course, the books. That bloody bastard couldn't wait long enough to deliver the books before he went on his little suicidal hike, and I had been fuming for days. Since the others have to eat and all that, the locals roped the new guy into doing deliveries. His name is James and his family has just moved into town, so they didn't know just how dangerous this job would be. I want to feel bad for him, but I'll reserve my pity until I assess his book selection. Any John Green and I'll throw him to the Prime Minister's myself. He showed up on Saturday. We were expecting him, so Lizzie convinced Gordon to convince the rest of us to throw him a little welcome party in the souvenir shop. We set up the radio and dusted the shelves. We washed our uniforms and combed our hair. Ava had even put some lipstick on Roger the Redback, but Gordon convinced her that Lizzie wasn't ready for that yet, despite having been around for almost a week at that point. Nothing strange had yet to happen when she was watching. I mean, except for those 2 times when she died, but that doesn't really count. Point is, we decided it's better to ease her in for as long as we can, and a 6-foot-tall, sentient spider isn't the most subtle peculiarities. James showed up at 1 in the Arvo, his ute pulling up filled to the brim with canned goods that none of us liked. I looked at him, sizing him up. East Asian heritage, long cheekbones and slick back hair. Tall, too, almost the same height as Gordon, who rushed out to guide him inside before the 2 a.m. sun came out. That was where the rest of us greeted him. "Hi," I said. "Hey," he responded. He had a Melbourne accent. "What brings you here?" I asked. He shrugged. "I don't know. Seemed like a good job to ride through my gap year." "You look about 25 years old," I responded. Gordon put his face in his hands, so I guess it came off as rude. "Oops." James, unfazed, just shrugged. "Yeah," he said. "Well, sometimes gap years last longer than expected, like a few years or almost a decade." He shrugged again. "You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I never went to school. But James seemed cool and I wanted to fit in, so I just nodded along. I changed my mind about him when I asked about the books, though. Apparently none of the locals had thought to cue him in on the particular tradition, so he didn't bring any. He promised to bring some along next time, but I'd already decided that I hated him and retreated from the conversation to glare at a distance behind the counter. The others all seemed to like him. Ava kept giggling at everything he said, wrapping her hair around her fingers suggestively. It was kind of cringe, I'll be honest, but none of us were going to point it out at her. She's just too nice. It's impossible to willingly upset her. Kind of makes it funny that she's the one of us with the highest kill count. Actually, that reminds me. I was going to tell you guys about that, wasn't I? Totally forgot. Here we go. So, this happened about 2 years ago. Ava had only just started working at the park and was the hot new thing, unlike Lizzie, who no one likes because she's uptight and annoying and almost maybe immortal. Ava was actually cool, and we all started to spend as much time with her as possible, to the point that arguments over who would patrol with her would sometimes get pretty ugly. See, Ava is a free spirit. She has bushy red hair and wears a pointed witch hat, speaks in dreamy tone like she's gotten her head in the clouds, and sometimes she steals teeth from bodies before we throw them into the pit and swallows them like Paranol tablets. It's pretty badass. She can also talk to nature, which we all thought was bullshit until the one time she ran into the knot platypus and didn't eat her eyes and tongue, as it had a penchant for doing. Just gave her a weird sort of nod and then melted back into the bush. The spurs of its back legs glinted in the harsh sunlight. Before Ava came, one of the many odd routines that we had to keep up while working was preparing the birthday parties. Now, don't get the wrong idea. We don't actually let children have their parties up here. That'd be fucked up. But even though our no party rules was very clear and the locals all knew enough to stay away regardless, on the 4th of every month we would always find ourselves preparing a child's birthday party. Whose party? We never knew. We didn't even know why or on whose order we were doing it. It just happened. We'd wake up on the 3rd and know that it was time to prepare, and what to prepare, and how to prepare it. They were always fairly typical Aussie birthday parties. Lamingtons, fairy bread, sausage rolls, and party pies, always either under or overcooked. Those store-bought cakes that every Aussie kid knows. You know, the ones from Kohl's, vanilla, chocolate, or caramel with lines of chocolate dribbled over the top. We never knew where any of it came from. Davo certainly never brought it with him, since we would have eaten it ourselves if he had. It all just showed up, and we all knew where it was. And then, there were the parties themselves. The adults, they didn't really matter. They were there, don't get me wrong, but they were background noise. An old white guy at the Barbie, for example, or a tired mom handing out lolly bags. You could only see them out of the corner of your eyes. The real centerpiece of the occasion was the children. It was never clear whose birthday it was, but it was always the same kids. We recognized all of them, even if it couldn't describe them. And they never aged past the squishy state after 5 years old, but before 10, even as the years passed. When Ava's first birthday party rolled around, the children were enthralled with her. They played with her hair, pulling it straight and watching it bounce back, and some of them stole her hat and passed it around between them. Ava bore all of them with a calm half-smile, far more composed than I would have been. She's cool like that. It was, all in all, going pretty well. Things started going downhill, though, once the birthday cake came out. Usually, as I said before, we'd use one of those coal cakes from this part. The kids loved them, and so did we. If we had to throw a party every month, you can be sure that we'd always help ourselves to a bit of the buffet. This time, though, we were surprised to find that Ava had something else in mind. See, when she heard that we were going to have a bunch of kids over, she was ecstatic. Ava loves kids, and she loves making them happy. So instead of relying on the usual cake, she decided we'd do something to make this particular party special. She baked her own. It was a marvel of a birthday cake. 3-tiered, the color of velvety mud, decorated with bright green leaves made of icing. It was a work of art, and the kids went insane over it. They practically trampled each other in effort to get the first slices, balancing them on napkins and poking each other with plastic forks. Needless to say, we were all very impressed, and as soon as the opportunity arose, Gordon went to retrieve his own slice. "What's it made of?" he asked, digging his plastic fork in and admiring its silky texture. "Oh, you know," Ava hummed absently, smiling with the children's excitement. "Just the usual. Eggs, butter, flour, sugar, vanilla extract. A little bit of arsenic, some cocoa powder." Gordon paused. his loaded fork hovering centimeters from his mouth. Sorry, what was that last one? Cocoa powder? No, the one before that. Oh, arsenic. It's my mother's recipe. Gordon nodded slowly, lowering his fork and studying his slice with a new wariness. Huh. Then the kid started dying. It was pretty ugly. Convulsing, crying, blood coming out from a wide variety of orifices. I won't get into details since the others all seemed pretty upset. None of them had eaten any yet, but apparently watching dozens of small children die horribly inspires some pretty negative emotions. I don't know why. It meant more leftovers for me after all, and I helped myself after they died. The cake was good. Ava's mother was onto something. The arsenic lent a nice, tangy aftertaste. We didn't have any more birthday parties after that. And that's the story. But before you go, I've got one more thing to talk about. I promised I'd keep you all up to date with everything happening currently, so I should mention that something weird had been going on, like even weirder than normal. It's been a pretty nice break from the monotony, if I'm going to be honest. See, since the last post, I've been missing moments, and not in the normal way, like with hot days. No, everyone else remembers, and they don't often last full days, just a few moments here and there. And when I come to, it's with a taste of ash on my tongue and black dirt under my fingernails. It's been getting worse. I honestly think I've lost a whole 2 days at this point. That's how long the others say I was gone for, at least. That's why this update has been a longer time coming from the last. But I haven't forgotten you all. I'm just dealing with it. It's just weird, I'm not used to the weird stuff around me actually affecting me. That's all for now, though, I guess. Sorry to leave you on a bummer note. It's probably nothing. It usually is. See ya. Well, that's the end of the Aussie Bush Ranger series. He must have truly forgotten or completely lost his memory because this looks like the last story that he wrote. But I hope you enjoyed all the stories tonight. And remember to always face your fears.